All right, time to find out if I can still make videos without talking about people dying horribly. Hello, I'm Mayleets. You might remember me from the series where I talk about people dying horribly, but today, no one died. No one died today. Great. The obituary section of today's newspaper, blank, empty, not a single goddamn thing in there. Anyway, hello. Today we're talking about a horror film. Isn't that nice? Don't you feel great about that? I feel refreshed. I feel like everything's coming up Millhouse. Nothing to worry about here. Don't have to see a chainsaw enter a person. It's great. I'm having a good day. Everything's been going great in my world. I've been very, very busy doing many, many things. Many planes, many hotel rooms, and even more other stuff. I'm going, as I said, I'm going to talk about horror. I'm talking about Skinamarink. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. I was decided to throw my hat in the ring. Sometimes you need, an adult to come in and explain things to you children. Wow, that's going to get me some downvotes. It's been a while, okay? It's been a while, and there haven't been a lot of new horror films, admittedly. I mean, I've been watching movies since I was, born. Let me tell you what, 2022, 2023, fucking nothing. I saw like 3 movies I liked. Isn't that embarrassing when you build your entire career around talking about film and then they don't publish any? Sucks. How does a YouTuber do it? That's a great question that I'm going to answer today. Maybe, if I feel like it. Somebody finally made a fucking movie. Just the best news you've heard all day. Someone made a movie. It doesn't even have to be good. Honestly, the movie could have just been like mid, and I'd been like, they snapped on that one because it's a fucking movie, technically. But alas, it is like a real movie for real people who are adults who have brains. So if you don't know what Skinamarink is, it is what they call a scary movie. Not only that, okay, but it's like it has a very specific vibe. Like if you're, let's say, I'm gonna throw a dart, 15 years old, and Blockbuster is around, and you are a weird kid who has no friends and walks to Blockbuster every day to rent plenty of films. I'm not naming names. If that's you, you would stumble accidentally upon Skinamarink and be like, oh, cool, I found it. A movie that's scary to watch. And that's a great feeling. Nowadays, you go to a theater and you're like, everybody's saying this movie's scary to watch, but then it's scary for other reasons. Like, it's scary because you're like, shit, I have got to go home and there's an hour left. This is like that, but worse. And you watch it at home, which is great because I like watching things at home. The smells in my home are far superior to the smells of a movie theater. I live with 5 other lesbians. Smells about what you would expect that would smell like home. If you haven't seen the movie, you don't know about the movie, let's pretend for an instance that this wasn't some sort of weird nationwide phenomenon, some new sensation that's sweeping the nation. Skinamarink is a vaguely titled film about a couple of kids who are living in a house that's a scary house. It's haunted by something. You sure want to know what the fuck it is. I first started seeing like screen grabs of this movie like on the internet a little bit ago. It was like 7 months ago. It's been a while. I had a friend who I hung out with who was like, we gotta go see this movie, and I was like, don't know what this movie is, Googled it, and then they canceled. So that was great. Long story short, I finally did watch it because the good people over at Shudder, who do not sponsor me but totally could if they really wanted to, you gotta stop teasing me about that shit. My fucking business email is on my YouTube channel. It's fine. I'm not mad about it. They just keep publishing movies that I've talked about on their streaming service. I'm not saying they've done this a couple times, but they did put Possession and The Devil's on there, and those are movies that I'm known for talking about. Skinamarink is on Shudder. Lucky. Good for me. Wonderful. I watched it. I had opinions, which is probably redundant to say given that I'm currently in front of you saying the opinions. I've heard this film described as ambient horror, which I guess is a decent way to start this conversation. How does one talk about Skinamarink at all? Like, I could talk about how it's shot really wonky and it takes forever for you to really feel like you accept it. You know, it's kind of like eating a food that's like either too seasoned or not seasoned enough. So you're like, I can't figure out if this is pungent or bland, and then eventually you're like, actually, it was the correct flavor the entire time. My tongue was the problem. In the opening moments of the movie, if you haven't seen it yet, you should know that it's very obtusely shot. There's like a lot of shots where it's just like static, locked off tripod shots of like the corner of a room. Like, here's the ceiling, and here's a Lego, or here's a door, or here's a Glade plugin. And you're just kind of left to figure out what exactly you are seeing. There's this like phenomenon a lot of people have talked about, but I think it's seen mostly through like this pseudo nostalgia lens, which is that VHS, like low contrast, very video-y, film grain, very noisy, lend themselves to horror because you don't know what you're seeing, and you could be seeing something, or you could just be seeing nothing, and who knows? They put effort into this one, or maybe they didn't. We don't really know. We get to make that determination ourselves. I guess I feel like that's probably a fairly scary aesthetic vibe. Maybe. I mean, if I was a kid and I was seeing everything through the lens of like low contrast film grain, I would probably be fairly horrified all the time. This film is like that. So the movie is 111 minutes, I think. It's fairly long for what amounts to a film with very, very little content. Not a lot happens in it, which is kind of where we get into the concept of it being ambient horror, which is kind of a nice way of saying that hardly anything fucking happens, and you kind of have to wait around until the like tension of the fact that nothing happens starts to tear your mind to shreds. The first like 30 minutes of the movie, admittedly, I was watching it skeptical. Skeptical is one way of putting it. I was pretty down on it. I thought that it was kind of lame and nothing was happening, and I didn't quite understand why we were watching it, why someone would make it, what I was supposed to be getting out of it. It felt very unrewarding. But then as time goes on, it continues to be unrewarding in a way that's almost more just like sticking that in your face, where it's just good luck figuring out what the fuck is going on, because we're not going to explain it, and also maybe nothing's going on, and also maybe everything's going on, and we have no real way of determining the truth. So like the ambiguity of the thing itself kind of lends to it being ambient. It's an environmental thing. Like you're meant to just sort of bask in this like weird aesthetic until you can't stand it and you start tearing your face off like that guy in that video. It's hard to commit to this. Yes, I would like to endure this for an hour, given that the film is so long. I mean, usually that would be a criticism. I would be like, yeah, it feels its length. Doesn't that suck? And I hate that. No, like it feeling its length is actually a fairly decent in this environment. After a while, every shot and its like lingering nature denying you any kind of like answers as to what exactly we're seeing. I mean, it really does unnerve you. It like gets under your skin. So like the theme I've been working with this whole video is Skinamarink is scary. And I can't say that about the majority of films that I've seen in the last 5 years, honestly. It is a movie that kind of scared me. Yes, there are jump scares in the movie. Yes, they are cheap and kind of stupid. And also there's like this constant room tone that's going throughout the movie. And you can almost always tell when they're going to do some bullshit scare because the room tone will slowly fade out. Very clever. Never seen that one before. However, it's not just that. It's a product of its environment. Like if you're engaged with the film, you know, you're actually paying attention, you want to know what happens. The film does start to really bother you after like 30 or so minutes because not only is it denying you any answers, but it's also torturously unpredictable. They could show you fucking anything and you'd be like, ah, God. After a while, like genuinely every edit starts to suck. No more editing for me, please. Can we I like it when there's a static shot with the television on. There's this house where there's no windows or doors, apparently. Kid can't leave. Kid's sister is there, but we don't necessarily know if she's real or a ghost. Their parents are there. Definitely not real. Definitely ghostly. Disappear and reappear at will. Going around in the house whenever the kid's like walking around trying to interact with other people. Things really suck. Everything something haunted and horrible happens. Shit is just chilling on the ceiling. There's a couple moments where there's just a chair chilling on the ceiling in a very inconvenient place to sit. There's a doll hanging from the ceiling at one point, which I was shitting my pants. Luckily, the kid is watching TV and he's watching these like reruns of public domain cartoons on like this big CRT TV. Typically, whenever that's going on, we're not super worried about some bullshit we're gonna hear in the sound profile of the movie, and we're not all that worried about what we're seeing. We're literally just seeing a cartoon, so we enjoy a cartoon. I think this all lends to this overall theme, which is like when you're a kid and you are going through a very hard time, you have a hard life at home. I'm not saying I can relate to, but I can have a tendency to fall into these very specific things that allow you some solace from those things while the environment itself is just going crazy. I think that this is a decent enough metaphor for growing up, being a child, having your home life be kind of terrible, still finding sort of ways to have shelter. I heard something online the other day that was something akin to like the ghost in the movie isn't necessarily like evil. It's like a child. It's like childlike, which I think it kind of tracks, except for the fact that the child demon ghost also does really horrible, cruel things to people's bodies and faces. So not necessarily what I as a child would do, but I'll hear you out. At a certain point, you start to get your bearings and you're like, cool, I think this movie is about my mom hates my dad and my dad hates my mom, super killed each other. My sister like fucked off or is a byproduct of being killed by parents or something going on. There was some traumatic incident. Family go badly. Sometimes family go badly. So that starts to embody itself as a theme, and I think that the titular Skinamarink is meant to kind of embody living through that, like as a vibe. We're meant to do a deep lore analysis, YouTube ending explained video about what the fuck is happening inside this house. Who in the family is the asshole and who is the victim? But after a while, it kind of changes into something else, and you stop worrying about that shit, and you start worrying about the very real threat of the thing that is actually very scary. Reality itself, for lack of a better term, kind of takes a big shit and dies. Things don't make perfect sense anymore. The house itself as an environment kind of becomes this sort of endless thing. The kid tries to contact police, can't really communicate with the outside world very efficiently. There's a lot of weird shit with toys where it's like sometimes a ghost wants to take the toys away, and sometimes it brings them back as like, let's play with some Legos. Creature being a child or something like that. I don't know. So like the house itself takes on this character of like everything slowly turns upside down. Everything gets like crazy distance away. They imply that a ton of time has passed, and then you're realizing that like this kid is just like trapped in this sort of endless nightmare with whatever the fuck this thing is. The atmospheric ambient element of the film somehow takes more of a front seat. You can't really get away from how abstract it becomes. The abstraction takes over. It just completely takes over. On a level about film ambiguity, I think it's meant to make us ask these questions, like what exactly is going on? What do these things mean? Instead of asking ourselves like these like more lore-based questions, like what's happening plot-wise, dig a plot out of this thing. I think it's more of like we have to just let the film wash over us and then ask ourselves what it all meant at the end of the day. I think that comes from this last like 15 minutes of things just ramping up into nonsense, more or less. A phone, it does a scary, it has a horrifying face. Are you scared yet? It's fucked up that I say these things, like I make these jokes and I imply that I thought that was stupid because like I know it's stupid, but also I watched it and it freaked me out. So what am I supposed to do with that? Like how am I supposed to feel with that? I, an intellectual, am suddenly no longer an intellectual. Now I like dumb things actually. I think jump scares are great and awesome. We're all a bunch of whiny babies here on YouTube. It was actually pretty fucking horrifying. Clearly my role as a person who liaisons between the film and the viewer has completely dried up, and there's nothing that I personally can tell you that you couldn't already determine by having seen the film itself. I do have a take. It is not a good take. It is a bad take. You will unsubscribe, I hope. Normal shit is scarier in metaphor than when things get real, violent, extreme. Like there's a monster and he's right there and he's gonna get you. Like that in and of itself is weak in comparison to just normal shit, just basic shit, just growing up in a house where you feel like suffocated, the worst imaginable thing. And not only is it stressful and scary, but it's also a reality that a lot of people endure all the time. One of the big American conditions, I asked myself as I was watching the movie, like, is this a post-COVID how to comprehend the fact that COVID happened film? And probably, maybe, but like if you're a kid in COVID and your parents hate each other and you have to live with it by watching the same 5 things on television, this gets to the meat of that. Only it's put through this like nostalgia lens, I guess. I guess it tracks to say that the film takes place in like the 90s or something, 80s. Without place, we never go outside of the house, so we don't really know what environment this is supposed to have happened in. But I think it's safe to say that it's more about how this manifests and the way that emotionally resonates. Being a kid in a tricky situation with your family is fucking nightmarish. It's almost more nightmarish than the monster itself. I also have this like predilection towards movies that actually deliver. I like movies that are a vibe, but I like the vibe to get up and walk around, do something. Appreciated the ending of the movie because it answered a lot of the fears I had about the movie, which is that it was going to ultimately end in nothingness. I was going to go to sleep. I was going to wake up and go, oh no, I missed the last 5 minutes of Skinamarink. And then I was going to be like, I'm going to watch that tonight, and then never ever finish the film. These are worries. I don't want that to happen. Everybody's talking about the movie. I would like to finish the film. The film really does deliver, and it's like last few minutes, like the last like 3 or 4 shots of the movie. Pay for that ticket price, which as I mentioned, was free. That last shot in specific, and if you've seen the film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. How could you forget? How could you forget? If you forgot, I would be amazed. It kind of marries together every idea that the whole film sort of embodies. It's like the nostalgia filter, weird sound and lighting choices, weird grain quality, think I know what I'm looking at, but I'm not really sure kind of aesthetic. It does all of that at the same time in a way that you actually see something. It delivers on its like general concept, and it all kind of builds on itself into this like really bad thing to look at. You can't really tell exactly what you're looking at because, as I said, filtration, grain quality. At the beginning of the movie, you're like, okay, student film bullshit. But by the end of it, you're like, actually very effective. Congratulations, you did it. That is a satisfying feeling. The movie proves me wrong because, like, admittedly, when the film started and that was the entire vibe, I was like, come on. Surely we're past this shit now. Like, surely we don't need to shoot our movie like this anymore. At the end of it, I'm wrong. They did, and it's better because of it. I like that. I like that they proved me wrong. Overall, pretty happy. Like, I'm a pretty happy camper with Skinamarink. I thought that it was gonna suck like 30 minutes in. I really started to write it off. I was proven wrong. Great for me. I do think, however, that the film would probably be exceptionally better if I discovered this on 4chan late at night, even though I'm pretty sure everybody would have said it was fake bullshit. But, you know, I think there's a satisfying quality to having just like discovered this as like some kind of weird no-budget gem that exists, rather than seeing it with like some platform with everybody talking about it. You know, I am a little late to the party. People have been talking about this for a couple months now. There are plenty of weird, long as fuck like ending explain videos about the movie. I don't care. I don't know. I kind of have a weird opinion on that now because I'm like, you can just watch the film and trust your own instincts. There's nothing saying that you're wrong. You see, because the film was fairly ambiguous as to what it was about. So I too am going to be ambiguous about what I think the film is about as well, slightly, so that you can have your own interpretation on it. Wow. Incredible. Anyway, I recommend it. I think it's good. It's certainly better than a lot of the shit that I saw this year and also last year and also like the last 5 years. It's one of the more interesting movies I've watched recently. These are good things. I don't really care if a movie is like great on a technical level. I don't care if it's smarty pants or if it's stupid. I really don't give a shit. The only thing that matters to me is that I walk away from it entertained by what I had seen. You know, I think this whole like idea that everything needs to be regurgitated through analysis all the time and we need to overthink everything, but not only overthink things, but like overfeel things too. Like whether or not something exists is like the objective mark of quality. And we need to just let ourselves feel what we feel about them. More than anything, I think that people turn to YouTube as a website to engage with the feeling that they currently have to see if anybody else got the same feeling. Universal experience. So I'm happy to be like, yes, I too thought it was weird. It was sure weird, guys. Thank you for watching. Please check out Skinamarink. Please give your money to Shudder. They do good work, but also I am not sponsored by them, and I don't think that's going to change because I'm way too problematic to be represented by a corporation. Leave a like and subscription. If I get 50,000 likes, I will jump right off a bridge just for you. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you're going to see not a lot of content this summer. Let me tell you what, not a whole bunch of content coming. You know, savor me like a fine wine from many years past, because I'm not going to be doing a lot of this, because guess what? I actually am making like a whole video about this, which you'll probably see either for or after this, but I wrote another book. Ignore the weird gray band that's on this, but this is the book. It's significantly longer than Fluids, which I also have here. It's also better. I'm going to be focusing on doing book-related shit for a while now. So YouTube is kind of, you know, it's a place I like to go to talk about the things that I've experienced and communicate my feelings. But for the most part, my art in the world now is mostly focused on writing. So check that out. There will be links in the description, and also keep an eye out for the video about the book itself. Support me on Patreon, patreon.com/NickSpheres. I haven't talked about that in so long that I genuinely don't remember the link. I'm free. Okay. All right. Well, see you next time. Don't get killed by a haunted phone. Unless you want to.